Hi team, it's me, Dr. Sylvia Bollie, America's obesity doctor, here for another edition of Fit in 15, where FIT stands for Fitness Inspired Through Teamwork. So as you know, I have a passion for helping busy people, especially working moms like myself, obtain and maintain our happy, healthy weight through practical lifestyle interventions. So it's September. That means we're 3/4 done with the year, only 1/3 left to go. We're back to school, back to work after vacation, and so I thought that it would be good for us to do a back to basics series. So for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to spend time going back to basics with food, because that's where weight loss starts. We all know is with food. So we're going to go back to basics, starting first with talking about breakfast, lunch, and then snacks over the next 3 weeks. So join me. So this week we'll start with talking about breakfast. And I have a confession. I am not a breakfast person. Well, I didn't used to be. So I remember actually back in college, one of my least favorite days was I walked into the cafeteria and we had breakfast for dinner. Oh, but I recovered and I made it through that. And I know I'm losing some of you guys because some people just love breakfast. I have friends who love breakfast, but for me it was a struggle. But I did learn on my weight loss journey that you have to eat breakfast. And when we look at what the National Weight Control Registry, which is one of my favorite sites to go to, because it is like this registry or a list of all these people who have successfully maintained a 30-pound weight loss for over a year, and they listed what are their common traits. So for those people, 78% of them eat breakfast. So breakfast is important. Now, there's a lot of controversy, and I know there's some naysayers out there who are like, "Oh, well, the breakfast data has been debunked and you don't need to do it. It was all industry funded." Don't worry about that. Like I said, for my own self, I've lost 40 pounds in 2 years and maintained that going on a year now. I'm so excited. November will be my 1 year mark. So I hope to make it onto the National Weight Control Registry also. But yeah, so I knew that breakfast is fundamental. So we won't focus on all the controversy, and we'll just talk about what a good breakfast should entail. So you know me, I try to keep things simple for you guys and for myself too, but let's keep it simple. I broke it down. So what I've learned is what's important is protein, whole grains, and water. So those are the three things we'll focus on, because you really need to know what should you be eating for breakfast. Just grabbing a honey bun or grabbing some quick refined sugar product is not going to cut it when it comes to weight loss. So I'm trying to get us out of here in 15 minutes, hence Fit in 15. So let me jump to it. So number one, protein. Protein, most of the weight loss data suggests that you need to have 20 to 30 grams of protein in the morning. That will help to keep you full. So I break it down in terms of thinking of your meat sources, non-meat sources, and then your plant-based sources. So meat sources, I'll start with that because in some ways that's easy. Meat is protein, so it's easy to get protein from meat. Now with meats, you want to be careful because about 2 years ago, the WHO, which is the World Health Organization, did release a statement listing processed meats as carcinogens, meaning they are cancer-causing agents. That is super scary, right? So what they found is that people who ate 50 grams of meat a day. So that's going to be or 50 grams of processed red meat, I should clarify. So that's going to be like your bacon, ham, hot dogs, cured meats, smoked meats, fermented meats, and I will have a link to this on my blog, the Fit Foodie blog, so that you can see the information for yourself. But that is going to be associated with higher risk of colorectal cancer. 4 times higher risk of colorectal cancer. And other cancer types were also associated with regular consumption of processed meats. So in 50 grams of a processed meat, just to put this in practical terms, that's going to be 4 strips of bacon or 1 hot dog. Yikes. So what you want to do is look for things that are nitrate free. If possible, go for a poultry product. If possible, go for a fish product. And really try to limit your meat intake, or especially red meat intake, very sparingly. Now, you know, I have done a talk on what the health and plant-based, so I know there's some people who don't jive with that, but my goal is to bring you guys practical lifestyle interventions that are comprehensive, that support the current data. And the current data does not say that you cannot eat meat. It just says be careful with what types of meat you eat, because some of them are more dangerous than others. So like I said, that will be on the Fit Foodie blog for you to read in detail. You have questions, concerns, shoot them to me. Moving on to now your non-meat sources. So that would be your dairy, that would be your eggs. So this would be for your vegetarians. So eggs are a good source of protein, particularly the egg white. You want to be careful with the yolk if you're somebody who is watching your cholesterol, if you have high cholesterol or a tendency towards heart disease, which is most of us now anyway. So the yolk, if you're going to eat yolks, so studies say that less than 7 yolks a week are okay for people with high cholesterol. So I'll also have a link to that in the Fit Foodie blog as well. But egg whites, you can go ham with them. No pun intended. I guess I should say you can go kale with them. Ha ha ha. Okay, I digress. So yes, but you can you can go ahead and have more egg white. Each egg white will have about 7 grams of protein. So that means if you're trying to get to that 20-gram threshold, which really helps you stay full, that means you would need to have about 3 egg whites in your egg white omelet. And that's one of my favorites. I usually do like an egg white with kale and some feta cheese, which brings me to my next point, which is cheese is another good source of protein. Now cheese, you have to be careful with the saturated fat. Fat has also become controversial in the last few years as well. But in terms of saturated fat, if we're going by the American Heart Association guidelines, you want that to be less than 5% of your daily intake. So that's going to be about 13 grams. To put that in perspective, 1 slice of like cheddar cheese, for instance, that will have 5 grams of saturated fat in it. If you want a cheese that has lower saturated fat, that would be like your mozzarella. That would have 1 slice of it would have about 1.5 grams of saturated fat. Feta cheese also tends to have lower saturated fat. It depends on the brand, but it would be 1.52 grams of saturated fat. They do have protein because cheese is made with milk, and they tend to have some protein in them as well. And you can get from a slice of cheese, depending on what type of cheese, you can get as much as 5 to 7 grams of protein pretty easily from there. So that is for your non-meat. So just to recap, so we talked about meat eaters, non-meat sources, and now plant-based sources of protein. So plant-based sources of protein, I've already said a few. Kale is one, spinach these are gonna give you on anywhere depending on how much you eat, but per serving you can get about 2 grams of protein. Beans are the powerhouse for plant-based sources. So soybeans are controversial because people are very concerned about the estrogen in them. I personally try to limit soy just because I find I'm very sensitive to it, and it slows my weight loss. So I don't eat a lot of soy. So I tend, if I'm going to do it, black beans, white beans, and is what I would do if I'm trying to be on a vegan meatless Monday. Also, they do have some sort of other vegan sources like coconut milk, yogurt, things like that. Those tend to have lower protein than your milk base or your cow's milk base yogurts. So those are other sources of protein. I didn't mention when I was talking about the non-meat part is that dairy, yes, Greek yogurt is a great source of getting some protein in the morning. All right, so moving on. So the next section is whole grains, and this is another place where meatless or plant-based plant-based people or eaters can make up for it, because whole grains are a good way to stay full, feel fuller longer. And what's a whole grain? Very simply, it is an unprocessed form of your grain. So meaning it has all three layers, and I'm a science nerd, so I won't go into the endosperm and the germ and the bran, but those are the three parts of a grain, a whole grain. Usually we traditionally have been stripping away that outer shell just for better taste and better flavor, but now we recognize that it's potential, that it's very good for us. So you want to look for things that say 100% whole grain, not contains whole grain, but 100% whole grains. Our current American dietary guidelines recommends that you get 6 ounces of whole grains per day. To put that in grams terms, that's about 96 grams. For me personally, I told you guys I'm very carb sensitive, so I try to eat, if I do whole grains in the morning, 40 is my sweet spot where I don't feel very sleepy and I feel full, and it can carry me for a while, so I get 40 grams in the morning. Now, remember things to watch out for with whole grains. They are still carbs. So if you are carb sensitive like me, or if you're carb counting, my goal every day, I try to stay between 150 to 200 grams of carbs, and really in that 150 range. And that's for my weight management. So you have to be careful with whole grains if you choose to do that. They are a great source though to feel full for the day, and they can replace some of that protein. So especially if you are someone who's vegan, you can replace some of your protein by eating whole grains in the morning. So what are whole grains? Some examples. My favorite are steel cut oats are really good. They're quick and easy to make. Also, Ezekiel bread or sprouted wheat bread, so that's good. And yes, I said bread. Can you believe it? Because I know bread has gotten a negative connotation, but yes, bread, you can eat bread. So some sprouted grain or whole grain bread, spelt bread, things like that, those are better for you and will help you stay full. If you do get something that it says contain whole grains, you want to make sure at least 50%. So a serving is considered 16 grams. You want to make sure it has at least 8 grams of whole grain in it. So that's for whole grain. Lastly, water. You need to drink water in the morning if you want to lose weight. Point blank. So how much water should you drink? This is always a question that we as doctors tend to get, and that, the answers have varied throughout the years. 64 ounces, blah, blah, blah. So weight loss, a lot of the weight loss data, and what I kind of stick to, comes from the fast metabolism diet, which recommends 1 ounce per kg per day. So meaning if you are 100 kilograms, which is about 220 pounds, you need to have 100 ounces of water. If you are the average American weight, which is about 150 kilograms, then you need to, 150 pounds. So that's about 75 kilograms, 75 ounces a day. So I recommend trying to get a third of that in the first 6 hours that you're awake. So meaning, between 6 a.m. to noon, get a third of that. And I say this because you have to make sure you drink water in the morning. A lot of the things that we love, I'm a coffee drinker. I'm told everybody, if the diet says no coffee, I'm off. But yeah, so a lot of the coffee, the drinks, coffee, tea, they are diuretics, meaning they're going to pull water out of you. And thirst is often mistaken as hunger. So you want to make sure that you're getting enough water in the morning to replace any of that fluid that you're losing by drinking tea. On average, some weight loss experts, they will recommend that if you have 1 8-ounce glass of coffee, you replace that with 2 8-ounce glasses of water, 16 ounces of water. So whatever, but for me personally, I just try, I know that I need in a day to drink 70 ounces of water. So I'll try to get in about 24 in the morning time, at sometime before I'm done. So just to recap, because I promised to get you guys out of here in 15 minutes. So breakfast is important if you want to lose weight. You should try to aim to make sure your breakfast includes protein, and or whole grains. Protein, you want it to be 20 to 30 grams. Whole grains, you want it to be 40 is a good estimate, so at least a third of that daily intake. And you need to drink water first thing in the morning. I will have all this information available for you in my Fit Foodie blog. You can go to my website, www.drsylviagbollie.com, and click on the Fit Foodie app. Now, you guys know that I like to leave you with a weekly challenge, weekly homework. I call it our Fit Focus. So our Fit Focus for this week is going to be to optimize your breakfast intake. So that means if you're not eating breakfast, start eating breakfast. If you do eat breakfast, look at the content of that breakfast and really think about if you're staying full through the day. So, guys, 15 minutes is done. Thank you so much for joining me here. It's Dr. Sylvia Bollie, America's obesity doctor, here for another edition of Fitness Inspired Through Teamwork, where I try to help us obtain and maintain our happy, healthy weight. You can follow me daily on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook, where I give us all information to help us stay fit. And I look forward to hearing from you. Share your pictures with me and keep me updated on what you're doing. All right, guys. Bye. Have a great week.